The 153rd edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been, there ever will be.
Nate Humphrey hands King Rice the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores.
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out to head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Today, it's just me and Anthony, and we're going to take a good look at the Iowa Hawkeyes, as that's Carolina's next opponent Tuesday night up in Iowa City as a part of the annual ACC Big Ten Challenge. Before we get to that, I do want to apologize if you guys that are annual or listeners to the podcast had to deal with some bad audio from our last episode. I was in the basement of my parents' house in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where the internet connection there, frankly, was not good. So we do apologize for any inconveniences about that. But besides that, Anthony, we're sitting here. We've now had almost 4 or 5 days to let the loss to Texas kind of settle in before Carolina faces their next test with Iowa. When we talked about the Maui Invitational Tournament earlier this week with Mark, we all kind of agreed that, not overly concerned about the team, kind of like which way they're going. Now that you have even more time to think about what happened, how you lost that game, you're still in good spirits about where this team's headed as they head into Iowa?
Yeah, about as good as spirits as you can be in when you're getting ready to face the number 3 team in the country. And a team that just looks like one of the more infatuating upstarts in college basketball this season. There's still some positivity around this team, especially after, what you went through last year. That was just a team that is going to be kind of forgettable when it comes to Carolina history, but at the same time, it's still kind of fresh to us. So, yeah, I think that this team still has a lot to be encouraged about. There's some guys in that backcourt that we think can definitely have the ability to be good players. They definitely struggle in certain areas, as we mentioned when we recapped the Maui Invitational Tournament. They had trouble with turnovers. They had trouble shooting from the perimeter in that final game against Texas, and definitely at the free throw line. They've got some things that they've got to get cleaned up. But, I still think that this team is a team that people should be confident in, especially because they seem like they're ready to face the challenge of having to play as tough a schedule as they have out of the gate. So this will be one of those stepping stones. We'll have to see how this team can handle going up to Iowa City and playing a game against an Iowa team that's probably as good as they've been historically in a long, long time. And it'll be interesting to see. The good news is that this is not the normal Iowa environment that you would face. That would definitely be an extremely tough challenge, but still this team is good enough where Carolina's going to have to be ready to go.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Maui is that you play the 3 games in 3 days, and you learn a lot about yourself. And I think this team really learned a lot about who they are. And a lot of it was good, things that they can do really well, and they learned some things that they've really got to improve on. And now they got to come back home and they got to decompress, have a Thanksgiving holiday, or not, you didn't have to worry about the Thanksgiving holiday or anything like that. You just came back home, and you got almost a week off to prepare for your next game, and you get back in the gym and just practice. When you're at Maui, you don't get a chance to really practice and improve on things. You're just kind of getting a simple game plan together and trying to go play your best basketball. But now you've had a week to learn or a week to look at what you did wrong in those 2 games against Stanford and Texas primarily, and where you can improve. And you mentioned it starts with the turnovers, where some of them are ill-advised, which you expect out of young freshmen. But sometimes, you look at how we handled getting doubled in the post. Mark did a really good job pointing that out when he was on with us last, how you handled double teams there. So you can work on that. The shooting, I think Carolina has gotten good looks this year. They just got to put the ball in the basket. That'll come as they get in rhythm. And then the free throws. There's really no way to improve on it. You just got to get in the gym and put shots up. And I guarantee you they had to probably make 100 free throws before they left the gym every day because it was that bad. That's why you lost the game against Texas when you look at the stat sheet, was that you were 18 of 32 from the foul line, and that's just not going to be able to get it done, especially in a game like you're about to play against Iowa. And so let's talk about Iowa. As you mentioned, this is an upstart program that, in terms of being nationally relevant at this level, they've been a consistent NCAA tournament team on and off for the length of time Fran McCaffery's been there. But this team's now a top 5 team in the country. They've got probably right now the best player in college basketball. Luka Garza has been an absolute monster inside, averaging 34 points per game so far to start the season. That's unheard of in college basketball, especially for a big man. And so, but there's more than just him to this team. They got 4 guys in double figures. They can shoot the 3 really well. This is as well balanced a team as Carolina's played this year. I think Carolina's in for a tough test. They haven't played in Iowa since they lost Northern Iowa back in 2015, where they went home for Marcus Page's senior season. They haven't played in Iowa City since 1988. That's important because normally in this kind of situation, Carolina's going back to a place where they haven't been in a long time. Jam-packed facility, raucous environment. That's not going to happen this year. COVID has completely taken that aspect of the game out, which benefits this young Carolina team because going into that kind of environment, you could go up there and get shelled and you wouldn't even really be upset because you'd understand it. Now Carolina's just got to go play good basketball, and I think they've got a chance to do that, but Iowa's going to be a pretty stiff test for this very young basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that headlines it, of course, is Luka Garza, but they've got a lot of other talent on that team as well. Fran McCaffery is probably one of the nation's more underrated head coaches. And like you mentioned, normally that's an environment that would be extremely tough to go into. So I think that Carolina catches a lot of breaks. But at the same time, they've got to be prepared because, again, you're going up against a team that is a lot more talented than a lot of people realize. I think a lot of people that just kind of generally follow college basketball, maybe don't look in depth into things, would think, okay, well, Luka Garza's got to be their own, he's their only player. As long as we shut down Luka Garza, we can win this game. Well, first of all, we know that that's not always how it works. Historically, when we face teams like this, usually the big name guy is not the guy that always bothers us. It's the little guys that bother us. In this game, I mean, look, there are some guys that would be considered little in terms of production compared to Luka Garza because he's, a guy that's a Win Award watch list favorite, could be the national player of the year. I mean, there's so many different attributes that he is the favorite to win and has gotten off to a great start to the season to put him on track to win those so far. But there's still a lot of other talent on this team, so they've got to be prepared. This is going to be a physical basketball game. That's how Iowa wants to play. That's how pretty much any Big Ten team wants to play. It's the reason why their conference is going to be so competitive and is going to be probably the most interesting overall conference this season in all of college basketball. So Carolina's got to be prepared for this one. You got to come out. I mean, look, starts to games have not been the best for Carolina, so they've got to find a way to get off to a quicker start offensively. I don't know if that really, just involves putting the ball inside a little bit more early on, which is something that we've been asking them to do. They've been settling for a lot of outside shots early on. But I think that's going to be one of the big keys. And then one of the other big keys, I mean, we talked about turnovers. In this game, it's going to be extremely important. You cannot turn the football over or turn the football over, turn the basketball over. Stuck in the football mode here for a second. You can't turn the basketball over as much as you did in those two games against Stanford and against Texas. If you do, this Iowa team is good enough where they will make you pay, and they can distance themselves relatively quickly. Stanford, they kind of let you back into the game a little bit. Same thing with Texas. This game against Iowa has a different feel. If you get down big in this game, I don't know if there's a way you can come back and beat this team, because they're going to just bring the ball down the court, go into half-court offense, take a lot of time off the clock, and let their best player, Luka Garza, try to take over the game. So those are the areas where you've got to see a little bit of growth from Carolina. But at the same time, I'm confident. This is a game that, I think Carolina's going to look at and know we've got to be ready to go in this one. They are going to be underdogs. That's not a role that they're going to be used to. A lot of people are going to expect them to come in there and struggle, especially after losing to Texas. So I think the motivation will be there. Now the big thing is can you execute in the areas that you need to in order to find a way to pull the upset?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned one thing about the starts. That's something that Carolina's they've got to be ready to go when the ball gets tipped in the air. And I think they are ready to play. I just think that their execution when the game starts isn't as crisp because they're just not – they're not in a rhythm yet. And now maybe those 3 games in 3 days allowed them to find them a rhythm of some sorts, and that way when they go out on the court on Tuesday, they'll be in a better rhythm. But you got to remember they still haven't played in almost a week, so if they come out and they're out of sorts, you're also going to understand that as well. But I really think the big thing in this game, Carolina's got to limit the turnovers, and really it's the live ball turnovers. You don't want to turn the ball over and let them run down and get a dunk. You don't want to let them run down and hit a 3 because those kind of things snowball on you. And that's what happened against Texas. That's what happened early against Stanford, was that those things kind of snowballed. You dug yourself a hole that you were able to climb back out of, but those teams aren't as good as Iowa. Iowa's legit. The Big Ten is this year probably the deepest conference in college basketball. I know we always like to say it's the ACC, and most years it is. But this year you're looking at the Big Ten. They've got Iowa. You've got Illinois, who's a top 5 team. Michigan State went to Cameron Indoor Stadium and beat Duke. Michigan's going to be really good. Wisconsin, they just got beat the other night at Bozeman. They're going to be really good. The Big Ten is a really, really good conference. It's a physical conference, and Iowa's going to be able to match whatever physicality Carolina wants to bring to the court on the interior. And I think that's the thing, is that I think if Carolina's guards can make shots, it'll help them. This is a game that you really need to get the best out of Garrison Brooks. I asked you and Mark last week about, is it time to worry about him because he hasn't played really well to start the season. Maybe this game brings out the best in him because he's going against the best big man in college basketball. That's a challenge for him individually, and then for the team, it's a challenge because he's better than every big man we have, and that's saying a whole lot because we think our interior post players are very talented and very skilled, and Luka Garza is better than all of them. But so that's what I think. As we go and start breaking down the keys to the game for this, for Carolina, it's you got to get some production out of R.J. Davis and Caleb Love behind the 3-point line, whether it's just 2 or 3 made threes. You got to get something. You've got to limit the amount of. You turn the ball over 24 times, you're going to get beat by 30. You're not going to be able to fight your way through that and keep this game competitive. And then it's about winning the battle inside. It's about winning the rebounding battle. It's about getting second chance points off offensive rebounds, which Carolina's done that to start the season. They've done a really good job at doing that, as opposed to last year where they were able to get offensive rebounds but not convert. That has been a problem so far to start this year. But in this game, they're going to have to be – I'm not going to say nearly flawless because you could not play great and still win this game. But I think you've got to play your best game to date if you want to upset a top 3 team in college basketball.
Oh, that's a question. The free throw line is going to be huge for Carolina in this game as well because of how physical we think this game can get. When you get to the free throw line, you got to be able to make the shots to win the game. You mentioned it. That was pretty much what lost you the game against Texas. You had countless opportunities at the free throw line and couldn't knock them down. And that was a big problem in a lot of games last year. We're talking about that stretch early in the ACC season where Carolina got a little bit of confidence. A lot of the games that they lost during that stretch, even when they played well, they lost because they couldn't knock down free throws. That's going to be huge in this game. They have got to be able to convert the free throws that they get and, find a way to put some points on the board. This is probably the first game this season where you look at it and say, okay, we've got to score and score often if we want to win this game. That's the mindset that these guys have to take into this game, because Iowa's going to put